Welcome back, beautiful souls, to the Rise with Anita podcast. Today is where your story meets sovereignty. Today, we're not just talking about relationships, we're walking through a sacred terrain of love where the wounds become your wisdom and connection becomes your canvas. This isn't about fairy tales or surface level strategy. It's about what happens when a woman chooses love from her wholeness, not her history, where she heals the ache behind her patterns, embodies her worth in every cell of her being, and rises not just to be chosen, but to co-create a relationship that expands her soul and strengthens her mission. Sheree Cain-Jones knows this path intimately, from surviving domestic abuse to raising 4 children with a fierce devotion, from building a business rooted in her empowerment to cultivating deep relational health. She's lived the kind of love that demands becoming. So today we're not asking, how do I get the relationship I want? We're asking who I must become to sustain the level my soul desires. How do I regulate my nervous system, which remembers trauma, but the heart wants connection? And what does it take to build a relationship that doesn't dim your power but magnifies purpose? I'm so excited because when I met Sheree, she captivated the room, and I am just honored to have you on the podcast today.
Thank you, Anita. I'm super excited. Woohoo!
All right, so my whole podcast is all about kind of her method that I talk about, which is heal, embody, rise. So I want to start off with kind of your hero's journey of like what it really looked like. Take us back to what you went through and how that kind of encompassed your turning points, and then what really made you finally say enough is enough.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so it all started when I was 2. No, I'm just joking. You're like, oh my goodness, it's going to be so long. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. I am born and raised. I might be black on the outside, but on the inside, like I'm totally like a lover of everything Mexican inspired. It's just where I'm from. It's my roots. And I grew up in poverty and in a home filled with drug, alcohol, and domestic violence. Mm-hmm. And that was perpetrated by my stepfather, and I went through that for 16 years, and for every day of my life my stepfather told me how stupid and ugly and fat that I was, and it really created this insecurity. So whenever I went out into the world at school, all of his words were just reinforced. You don't belong here. Mm-hmm. Why are you here? You're ugly, or whatever those words that were spoken. And then my stepfather left when I was 16, and within a year I was in a relationship with an older man. He was 25. I ended up getting pregnant, dropping out of high school, and even though I was raised in domestic violence, here I was in a relationship with domestic violence. And I was with him for a couple of years, and then for me it was a real supernatural spiritual moment where I just was like, what am I doing? Like my life, who I am, my value, my worth is worth so much than this. And it was literally it was just a turning point where for some reason I got to see who he was and what he was about. And he was a 6-time world champion in karate. So that was a crazy thing. So I was being abused, but he would do these crazy moves that didn't leave marks. And it was a completely shackling experience. So I had that moment, and from that moment on I just made a decision to move forward. Now fast forward, I get married, I have kids, and then I recognize that my son, I have four kids, 2 adult daughters and 2 younger boys. Well, they're adult daughters now. But anyway, my son was diagnosed with special needs, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like I went through all of that for this. And again, it was another superpower moment where I just made a decision that I'm not what has happened to me. I'm not what has happened to my kids. I am not what I've experienced. And it was another spiritual moment where I said, you know what? Like, I'm not going to wait for someone to help me rise. I'm going to use the her method. I'm going to get up and I'm going to make a decision to rise.
I love this. And so let's go back for a moment, because I love something you just said, which was you had that power of decision. So for you, what was your kind of like all hail, let's go in?
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it was a moment in one decision, but it was a series of decisions. Sometimes with some people, it's just one moment. But when I look back on it, it was micro decisions that said, you know what? don't have to live like this. And I didn't have the language to articulate it back then, but what I knew was that I did not have to be a victim in my own story. You know, in any story, this is just what I believe. I think that there's always the victim and there's the villain. And we get to choose, hey, who am I going to be? And I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to be a victim. Yes, this has happened to me. Yes, this hurts. Yes, it's painful. But I get to choose my role. And if I'm going to choose my role, like I want to choose the hero. I don't want to, a good story is always about the person who got up, never the one who laid down. Like, who wants to watch that movie? I don't. And so it was a series of micro decisions to get up. It was, I'm going to get up out of the bed. I'm going to get up and I'm going to say affirmations over myself. I'm going to get up. I'm going to look in the mirror. I'm going to get up and I'm going to look towards a positive future. So it was a series of micro decisions to be the victim to be the victor in my story and just say, hey, like, what would that person do?
Amazing. I want to go back for a quick moment because I think it's interesting. A part of your story was that you went back to school at 24 after having kids at an early age, and you earned not only a nursing degree, but a master's in project management. And you did that while healing yourself and raising your kids. 2 of them, was it 2? With special needs. That's enormous. So what aligned mindset practices did you start to kind of encompass? I know that you touched on affirmations, but was it a certain shift? Were you starting to read the books? What kind of helped you throughout that journey?
So all the way back then, so when I was 24 and I went back to nursing school, at the time I had my 2 kids. I didn't have the twins yet. And it's interesting. I didn't have the language back then, but I just knew I wanted to do something more with my life. If I was to think about it, it was creating a vision. That's really what it was. I was internally creating a vision, and I knew that where I was versus where I wanted to go, there was this dissonance, and it didn't match up. And I wanted to prove. So that's technically not a mindset practice. You don't prove for mindset practice, but maybe it was because I wanted to prove to myself.
Well, that's a different energy, though.
Yeah, I wanted to prove to myself, no, I'm not stupid. I can keep going. Like, I want to at least go out there. I want to try. So it was mindset, but it was also action set. Because I think a lot of people are like, yeah, I'm just going to like manifest. It's like great life and things are going to just kind of like float into space. Have you ever heard of Goya?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it was also visualization and activation.
Yeah.
And making a decision to go towards that, what I saw in my mind's eye. And I made, again, I was only 24, but I made up my mind, I'm doing this. I'm going to do it. And I remember one of the moments for me was I was driving down the street. I was going to community college. Because people think like you got to be like super smarty pants to go back to school. No, when I went back to school, it was in a way humbling because I started off in like algebra, like 5th grade math to build myself up to pre-calculus. So I didn't start off like super smarty pants. And I found out that if you go to school, you actually have to focus. And I was like, I have a focus problem. I just can't pay attention. But then when I had to pay for my classes, it was magic. I paid attention. Like I had to, it was like magic. I don't know what happened there. But like I was saying, it was mindset practice of making a decision that this is what I'm going to do and I won't be deterred. And as I was driving down the road one day to go to community college, this was back in North Carolina, I saw this guy who was in a wheelchair and he had a friend who was pushing him. But I had seen him. He went to the community college and he worked at the local McDonald's. And here he was, no car, no legs. And somebody was pushing him. And I looked at that and I thought, what the hell is my excuse? I'm driving in a car. I have legs. And if I think I can't do it, and this young man here who is wheelchair bound isn't making excuses, then how dare I make excuses with this existence I've been given?
Absolutely. So you kind of got a perspective shift in that moment of like, it's that example of, hey, if he's not letting me stop, to stop me? And it kind of changed the trajectory of your life in the sense of now you know to focus on whatever it is that you're attaining. That's amazing. So getting into kind of more of your story, you now achieve a lot of high successful women to silence imposter syndrome, manage their family conflicts. I know that you and I really resonated over the family dynamics, and set bold goals and actually start to take that aligned action, which is literally all that I think is so overlooked, because so many times people go, it's kind of what you're saying, I want the manifestation, but I just want to visualize it into fruition. And it's like, okay, once I have that visualization, how do I reverse engineer the process of getting that thing, whatever the outcome is? So what are the top 3 internal blocks you see your women face? And what would you say are the strategies today that you're helping them with?
Top 3 internal blocks. Well, I would say the first block is their thought patterns. It's all about your thoughts. If you think what is it Henry Ford said? If you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, like, welcome to the I can't party. So it's going to be those thought patterns, because your mindset, it's going to give you the life that you want, or guess what? Your mindset's going to give you the life you think you can have. That's the same way it is with relationships. You're going to get the relationships you want, or you're going to settle for what you think you can have. But it all goes back to what you think in your mind. And that is the number one block, is how you think about the life that you want to create. So when I say that, what I mean is that I used to look at successful people. So let's say it's somebody like, I don't know, okay, Tony Robbins. The first person that popped in my Uncle Tony. Okay, so the first person that pops in my head is Uncle Tony. I can look at him and I can either be inspired or demotivated. And so sometimes when we are looking at people, we'll say, oh, yeah, Tony did it. But then there's this other thought that comes so sneaky, and it says, but he's tall. But he's a man. But he's tough.
But
he's
he had
smart.
it easier.
But he had it easier. But he didn't have kids. And it's all of those buts that keep your butt where you are.
Absolutely.
All of your butts is going to keep your butt right where you are. So number one, it's your mindset. It's the thoughts that you think about yourself. And in order to get better thoughts about yourself, you're going to have to give up your family patterns. You're going to have to give up all of that childhood garbage. And I'm not saying your parents were bad, but a lot of our thoughts that we have about ourselves came from either a childhood experience or a peer experience, but somewhere you got those thoughts. The number two internal block is that people don't understand that it takes discipline. And discipline is not something that you're born with. I think discipline is a muscle, and it's a decision. And so I used to be like, oh, I'm not disciplined. I can't get up in the morning. Well, guess what? When I worked at 5 a.m, it was magic. I got up. So it's discipline is a decision. It is a decision. And I really think a lot of people are more disciplined than what they think. Because if you can commit to 20 hours of Netflix, you're actually very disciplined. But we just got to get it in the right way.
Yeah.
It's just going in the wrong way. And so people will be like, I'm not consistent. And I always say, you are consistent. You are consistently inconsistent. So if we can just develop that muscle in the other direction, then you'll actually realize your superpower. So it's discipline. And then the number 3 internal block that I see is it's gonna suck. Oh my gosh, this law of attraction, like, I'm down with it. And the visualization, I'm down with that. I got a vision board, have all the things. But it's interesting because between the vision and where you are is the mean time, and it's mean time, and you have to embrace the suck. But I just didn't recognize how hard that suck was gonna get.
Yeah.
And it's like Instagram and Facebook and
It's
all
the
of the
Amazon
things.
Prime mentality.
Yeah, you think it's okay, like I'm going to go and I'm going to have this wonderful life. But then along the way, there are so many things that suck. There's so many no's. Nobody told me that there was going to be like 1,000 no's. Yeah, I had no idea. I mean, I
You
knew it
have
was
to
going to be
start getting
bad.
comfortable with like that rejection, especially if you're in the process of like building a business, building your self-worth up. It's that constant, can you make the differentiation between now and not now?
Yeah, so I totally agree. I think that embracing the suck and how hard it is, and that's where that mental game comes in. And it is I think there's an African proverb that says that the enemy within is the worst one. There's the enemy without, but the worst one is the enemy within. Because a lot of times women, they don't see how great and how amazing that they are, and don't even stack a win, don't give themselves any credit, don't do anything to give any affirmation to themselves. So why would you think that you could do it if all you do is tell yourself you can't do it? Makes no
Right.
sense.
Actually, I think that was the interesting part of when we did meet. You had our collective women's group go through and list off their wins for the year so far as we're gearing up towards this halfway point. And I remember just sitting there going, huh, I really don't sit here thinking all that often, but it's in that moment of taking that, even if it's just like, hey, I'm going to celebrate. This is amazing. This is happening. Let me put on my favorite song and dance to it. We often just brush past it because we're like, okay, on to that next goal. But what I liked about what you did was you paused and you were like, hey, what have you already accomplished so far that's actually building momentum towards what you're trying to build?
Yeah, and then also looking at it from yourself 10 years ago. Cuz there's something that says, it's not even a freaking big deal. Like, give me a break. Like, got a gym membership. Whoop-de-doo. Or, man, got a client, or, I'm in a relationship. But then you need to look 10 years ago. 10 years ago, you'd be like, wow. And that's where you have that emotional feeling that goes, man, maybe I haven't really made progress. Progress is not measured in what you do in a week. It's like, look at the last 10 years, and you look at the last 5, and you should be thrilled with where you're at. Now, what do you think are the internal blocks that women have? I'm interested.
I think a lot of it comes down to the ones that I personally have noticed are like the self-doubt. They come back to, it's kind of what you were touching on. Oh, such and such can do it, but I can't because it's not me. Or I haven't had that example in my own personal life, so how am I going to mirror that? Or simply, I've started to notice, especially as I've started to gear into using my voice more, it's that internal of like, who is going to say what about this? Right? Because that alone can cause resistance to how am I going to be seen and perceived if I have family members or I have people I've known, I'm going to be stepping into a different light. So I think sometimes we get so afraid of what others might say about us, what they make about us, that it ends up almost stopping us from taking the actions that we want to take or we know we're aligned to take. And then I think imposter syndrome is a big one too, of just like, I'm not able to make this happen, or I've never done it before, so how am I going to make it happen? And I think the beautiful part of that is we're in the industry of literally mentoring and guiding and kind of like rewiring these beliefs to be like, hey, you might not have done it, but look, there's examples of people who have. So why not you?
I love that. I love that. And I love that the voice and who is it? We struggle with that, or that can be a whole thing. I just love that you said that, you called that out, because their opinion is nice but not necessary.
Absolutely. I think I finally got to a point for me in my own personal journey where it was like, I rather lose you than lose my purpose. And once I got to that point, it was like, there's no turning back. Like, let's just go. Because if we look at it from a logical standpoint, yes, the journey may require you to shed some layers. And I think eventually once we get to the portion of relationships, we'll talk about that. But it's like the right relationships will find you. So even if you have to shed the incorrect people of your life, it's going to bring you more closer to what your fulfillment is and what you actually need to kind of embrace in becoming your own authentic self. I think the biggest mistake women typically do make is that we live so much of our lives giving to others or giving into others' opinions that we end up forgetting who we actually are.
Girl, now look, I'm gonna tell you something. I had this lady who's in my coaching group. She was 69, and there is a consequence to giving to the detriment of yourself. And I think in society, it's like a badge of honor. Like, this mom sacrificed herself. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that sounds awful. Like a sacrifice. Like, don't they burn those things up? Like, wait a minute. And she just talked about how this woman, she's amazing. She started doing some incredible things. I'm so proud of her. But just how the people pleasing, over functioning, what it led to was saying, hey, like, what's my purpose? I've given to my family and to everyone, to my job. They need something. Yes, I'll do it. My family needs something. Yes, I'll do it. My spouse needs something. Yes, I'll do it. And now she's almost 70. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. What about what I've been called to do? And so we don't really think about those things as women or as people, that your decision to sacrifice is a seed, but you just better make sure that that seed that you're sacrificing is leading to some kind of satisfaction on the end. I don't want to use the word success because then people are like, oh, you're talking about money. No, I'm just saying, like, satisfaction with a life that's well lived, that you're proud and you're happy of.
Absolutely. I think what has started to help me really in my own personal journey is that concept of, if I look and lay on my deathbed, how much of my life am I going to regret? Because let's be honest, you don't usually regret the things that you did. It's those actions and those moments that you wish you spoke up. You wish you pursued that dream. You wish you took that action to get to the relationship or whatever the case is. Those are the regrets that we have. It's very rare that I find in the conversations I've had, and I think there's a beauty because I tend to connect with people who are much older than I am. And what I always notice is the common thing as I have conversations with them, and I'm like, tell me about your life, the things that they regret is very rarely the pursuit of what they wanted.
Yeah. Kubler-Ross talks about that, how the dying, they regret what they didn't do, but it was not being true to themselves. I love that, just visualizing how you want to live your life and then just make decisions that are in alignment with that.
100%. So tell me, when we talk about embodying success and resilience, what do you think that looks like on a day-to-day level for you now and then for your clients as you're witnessing them?
Yeah, on a day-to-day basis, what is resilience and what was the other one?
Embodying success.
Embodying success. I think it's that there's so many different layers to it. The very first thing is being true to me. I am not obligated to somebody else's opinion. That's why I said it's nice but not necessary. So when I sat down with that coach, because my mental break ended up with, it wasn't a mental break, but it was a breakthrough with a coach, and we sat down, and I wanted to go back and get my master's degree. I wanted to write a book. I wanted to begin to be a speaker. But I had this internal resistance because I was concerned that people were going to judge me. Like, oh, how are you going to do that? Your kid has special needs. How are you going to help women with this when your life looks like that? And I'll never forget when he said, hey, who are all these people who are judging you? Let's get over these mental blocks. And when he asked me that question, I couldn't name one single person. And he held up a blank sheet of paper and he said, are you going to let a bunch of no-name people stop you?
Oof.
from living your dream. So I made that decision. I'm going to be true to me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to be true and just doing all kinds of crazy things, but I'm going to be true to what I believe I've been called to do, what I believe God has called me to do, the women God has called me to help. I'm going to stay true to that, because when I don't, then it's like a way of abandoning myself.
Yes.
And I always say it like this, is that when you hold in and you suppress your purpose, your vision, it's so heavy. I believe for me personally, it comes from God. And imagine just trying to hold in God. It's exhausting. Why would I do that? So I'm just true to who I am. Now then it's on a daily basis doing stuff that sucks. Okay, like it's getting up in the morning. Every morning I do this. I have like a framework for my day. So it's frame 1, frame 2, frame 3. So frame 1 is really meditating, reading. I do my affirmations. I exercise. I connect with nature. It just helps. That right there, it's starting the day off with a win instead of rolling out the bed. I mean, like some people, they get up and they do their workout or they connect later. But for me, that's my win. Is connecting first with myself.
And then like the external world in.
Yeah. Because actually, I'm no good to anyone if I don't first figure out what's going on with me. That's my first thing. And I tell people at the beginning of the day, like that's start your day off that way or end it that way, however it works. And then my second part of my success is the discipline. It's making the phone calls. It's stop waiting for the freaking perfect moment that's never going to happen. I was telling my husband yesterday, I was like, why is it that I want things to work out? And when it doesn't, I'm like, what happened? But when I look back on my life, nothing has ever worked out. Like, give me a break. Like, I was born, like, in the hood. Like, I went to school in the hood. Like, I didn't, I mean, in school, I did well, but I ended up with a relationship. You know, I had, none of my births ended up, I wanted to do, like, a home birth. Oh, my gosh, what was I thinking? Like, I think my heart goes out to the mamas who do that. My twins weren't born the way I thought they were going to be born. My third one wasn't born, or my second one wasn't born. Like nothing in my life has turned out just exactly the way I wanted. So this belief that it's going to turn out the way I want is absurd. It's insanity to expect this to turn out when it never has. So now I just discipline myself to do things, do it now. Like a lot of times I'm like, okay, I want to be sitting in my office and have like this perfect sales call and like, oh my gosh. Yeah, it just wanted to be perfect. But I was on vacation last week and it was like, I didn't have a sales script in front of me. Girl, I had my phone. No script. I was just talking to her. I was like, look, this is where you want to go. You want clarity. You want to have your vision. You want to discover your purpose. You want to stop being exhausted. And she bought. It wasn't perfect. Nothing works out the way you want it to. So that's the second part is making sure that, hey, like in that second frame of the day, that's a daily success. And then the last part of the day, and I do want to get better at this because I'm not perfect, is just reviewing the win. Anything. And I'll say like to my husband, I'm like, well, what went well today? What did you learn? Everything that you do, it doesn't have to end off in this perfect outcome. Sometimes it's the lesson that you learn that helps you for the next time that you encounter a situation. Sometimes it's acquiring information that's going to help somebody else. It doesn't always have to be
perfect.
Some kind of outcome that's going to benefit me. Mm-hmm. It could be benefiting someone else. So those are to me like the true successes is acquiring, learning, and being the best person I can be so I can help someone else.
I love that. And I think what was so great about what you just talked about was that debrief you do with your husband of, hey, what worked today, what didn't. So I imagine in other parts of your relationship, you probably have that check-in together where it's like, how can we connect? How can we improve this relationship? So do you want to go ahead and touch on that aspect?
Oh, yeah. Like, how do you check in? Yeah. So here's what I do in frame 1 of my day. Because I'm big on relationships and how my relationships are impacting me. There's 4 relationships. There's a relationship you have with the spiritual world. There's a relationship you have with people around you. There's a relationship you have with yourself. Mm-hmm. And there's a relationship you have with life. And the women I work with, a lot of them, their spiritual life is pretty good. But their relationship with themselves, their life, and other people, it sucks. Usually the worst one is a relationship with life. It's
Expand on that.
so, life sucks. Life's so hard. Man, life's a struggle. Guess what you gonna get? Struggle, hard, it ain't working. Now, I say those things too, but that's my relationship with life. So what I do in the morning is I write down people's names in my family. Mm-hmm. I write down my business, and I rate it. That's my check-in. First, before I even check in with him, because we've been married for 24 years, so who knows what we're going to say. It's usually something good. But before I even check in with him, I check in with me. Mm-hmm. Sheree, how do you feel about your spouse, your relationship? And I rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. This is what it is. I first check in with me. So that's what I would tell someone is the first girl, fella, friend, check in with yourself. How do you view it? Then I write down my emotions. Why did I give it an 8? It's happy, it's peaceful, it's content. What would make it a 10? Aruba! Okay. Jamaica! But if it's a 5, if it's a 6, wait a minute. Now we've got, where would I want it to be? An 8? That's a big gap. What's going on here? Maybe we need to have a date. Maybe we need to sit down and talk. And I this is just my thing. I don't think date night solves your dysfunction. It's a great way for you to eat and have good conversation, but date night doesn't solve your problem. So checking in is checking in on my inner world, on their inner world. What's going on in your world?
I love that.
How can I support you? What are your dreams like? What are you frustrated about? So that's kind of, did that answer? I just started, girl, I be talking. Start talking.
No, that answered it. That answered it because I was asking, like, how do you check in with your spouse? Because I hear so often, and I'm not in a relationship, but I've studied relationships. And I know dysfunctional ones very well. Yeah. Because it's what we learn, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm always curious about how people in a healthy relationship are navigating it. And one thing I've noticed in the ones that I actually have witnessed personally is they usually have some sort of check-in communication pattern. Mm-hmm. You don't have spouses that are essentially roommates. Because as soon as you let that position kind of be the thing that you're doing of like, we basically live separate lives, but by title we're married and we're together, there is no more relationship. So for me, it's always been, how can I start cultivating the skills of like, now I don't have a marriage or a relationship currently, but I use that same tools to be with my mom of like, hey, we live together. How can I support you? Where are you feeling overwhelmed or stressed? Or right now, I kind of need this from you. Mm. And it's that open communication and that flow, which I think while females are tended to be a little bit better in communication, I do think it's important to recognize that males especially have their feelings and whatnot that they need to communicate. I think sometimes we just don't allow them or offer them the space to do so.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think most men, they have a difficult time because when you're a little girl, what do they give you? A doll. Yeah. You get a doll. Like, that's your prize for being a girl. Here's a baby. Learn how to take care of it. So immediately, little girls, they sit down with their dolls. And they learn to be emotionally available. It's ingrained within us. And it was so funny. I told my husband, I was like, if I had girls all over again, I'd give them a chemistry kit or something. Give them a telescope. Give them a baby. Anyway, maybe because I was a teenage mama, so too much practice. I'm just joking, kind of. Okay, but girls are really programmed. Here's a doll. Here's a Barbie. Dress him up. You girls sit down and you play. And then I had boys, and I was like, what the heck is going on? These people don't sit down. But girls, they sit down, they talk. But I'm not saying being emotional is a skill, but having emotional intelligence is a skill.
Absolutely.
And so I have to allow my spouse, and I have to ask him different questions to find out what's going on in his world. Because a lot of men, I don't want to use I'll say as a general rule, they don't. And our pattern is, hey, what's going on? And I'm a reader, so I read him. I mean, but I've been married for him for 2.5 decades. So I read him and I'm like, oh, his brow looks off. What's going on? Are you okay? Tell me about
the subtle body cues.
The subtle body. But you can use that same skill with people that you love, like with your mother. It's a skill.
Mm-hmm. Reading between the lines.
Yeah, being emotionally open, listening to what they don't say. Mm-hmm. Not just what they say.
So since we are on the topic of marriage, how do you say the inner child kind of, those blueprints that we have from our family, whatnot, coming into that type of relationship where it's obviously you're in a more intimate proximity. So I'm sure that there's points where old wounding might have, maybe not so much now, but in the beginning would have came kind of rearing its head, and how did you handle that at that point?
Well, I didn't. I didn't. For the people that are listening, I'm looking at the camera saying, your girl is not going to lie. Okay, because energy don't lie. So, no, I was quite aggressive. What is it? There's like 4 types, like the lion, the mouse, the T-Rex, and the lion, mouse, T-Rex, and there's one other one. Anyway, I was like T-Rex. Rawr. So I didn't. So again, it was a skill to learn to deal with my own personal issues. Now, I wish for someone who, looking back on it, there's multiple ways that you can deal with that. You can get yourself into some emotional regulation course. You can start admitting what's actually bothering you instead of being, sister suppressor and saying I'm fine.
You just hit on something I'm so passionate about talking about in general, is just stop suppressing your emotions. Mm-hmm. So for example, over the weekend, I had a moment where I just randomly started crying on the couch and nothing triggered it externally. So my grandparents and my mom are both kind of looking at me like, are you okay? How do we fix this? Because that's the natural innate kind of reaction, right, to discomfort of someone crying, especially if you don't know what triggered it. And I was like, I'm fine. I just needed to release. And normally I would have done so in the bathroom, but look at that, grow, right? But what I've come to be like is it's so important to just own, yeah, I'm not feeling great today, or I'm having this moment of I have these feelings coming up. Let me acknowledge them so that they're not sitting and ruining the rest of my day.
Yeah. I love that. Don't suppress. I don't believe in suppression. Rarely works. Emotions suppressed are emotions that will be expressed at the most inconvenient time, where you'll be at the grocery store and somebody will bump into you. You say, what? Because they're going to come out. But it's just looking at them without judgment. Now, I didn't handle this well in the beginning. I wish I would have gone through emotional regulation and just understood what was going on. Now, and I will say still, there are embedded, I don't classify myself as insecure, but do they have insecurities or things that bother me that pop up? Yeah. So now I have to recognize it and be willing to admit it. Then it's when I see that emotion, now what do I do? Am I now a victim to it? Is this really what I'm feeling, or was this pizza? You know what I mean? Like sometimes you gotta, because emotions, they are not they're not linear. They're not always real. You can go watch the Titanic and cry, like when Jack and Rose, Jack, you could have gotten to another boat, and it's like so sad. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna cry. It wasn't even a real situation. So not every emotion that presents itself is real. It could be my hormones, but what I will say is that now I have to acknowledge it. I have to look at it, and I analyze it. I go, wait a minute, why am I feeling this? What happened? Especially when my emotions turn. And it's so funny because they'll say, your spouse will bring out the best in you. And I told my husband, I said, your spouse will bring out the worst in you. They will bring out the worst in you. And here's why. Because they're coming up against you. And so a lot of times that stuff needs to come out. I thought I was like nice, and I got married, and I was like, I'm a beast. I'm a beast dressed up as a woman. But that stuff needed to come out for me to deal with it, not to accuse him and not make him, again, the villain, and I must be the victim.
Right.
It was our destructive pattern that was the problem.
Absolutely. For me, anytime anything triggers me, a strong belief I have is it's my obligation to look at why it's triggering me, rather than point at the person and blame them or make them the problem. I'm like, oh, hold on, I have an emotional reaction here. Why am I having this emotional reaction? What is it that I'm not dealing with, or what is it I have not looked at? And I think when we take these moments of being still, of like, I'm going to actually sit there and look at it. Not to necessarily fix it, but just to acknowledge what's going on with me. I think so many times it's so easy, especially with the hustle culture that we're ingrained in, to be like, oh, I'll deal with that later. But then later never comes, and then it becomes a stacking of your emotions kind of just stacking.
I like that. And I think too, just like back to like to your point of like not stacking is not when you're in a relationship, one of the things I've had to learn to do is to understand that my husband he has triggers. Okay. There are things that bother him.
Mm-hmm.
Why do that? Why hurt him? There are things from not like he's, walking around like, where have you seen my childhood? But just understanding that some of those things are sensitive, so I protect them. I honor him as a person. I honor his experience. I don't try to get him to respond the way I would, because if we did, there'd be a war. So recognizing that this other person is not you. How about that? Recognizing that your perception isn't perfect. Now, I might be right. But I might just be right. But maybe I'm not. Maybe because there's no immaculate perception.
Right.
And I'm not going to be the first one. But now I have to take that with my adult kids. Mama might be right. A lot of times I think mama is right. But who said that I had permission to always give them my insight? Who said they wanted it? Oh, now I got to take that to my own parents. Who said that I'm right? Oh, that's hard. Because I got a whole stack of some stuff y'all did. Okay? But wait a minute. Who said I'm right? I don't know the other part of the story. I might be right, but I'm operating with limited perception. I only see what was done. I don't see why they did. And so it's just, I have to come with, like, that's like super empathy, super holding space, and recognizing that a lot of times I really do think I'm right. Like, for real, y'all. Like, have you ever known that person who thinks they're right? Like, that's totally me on the inside. But this applies in my relationship with my spouse, with my parents, with my daughters, with myself. But that doesn't mean I create some boundaries. Okay, now that just because I'm not right or just because I'm holding space, that doesn't mean I don't create boundaries. I create boundaries quickly in order to protect and preserve myself, because not everybody, and this is at work, it's not everybody's responsibility to know what you are thinking. Why don't we put that on people? They're not that smart. We aren't that smart. You got to tell us don't do that.
Agreed. So many times I think it comes down to like the projection of you should know what I'm going through. But if I'm not communicating with you what it is I'm going through, not everyone has that deep innate resonance of like, oh, Sheree feels off today. I wonder why. But it's also not necessarily the other person's job. It's if you have an issue, you need to start communicating that.
Well, that would make you take ownership over your own needs,
100%.
desires, over your own emotions. Why is it that how do we come to the conclusion that I need to read your mind? Girl, I ain't got no crystal ball, and I am not a psychic. I'm not getting paid. And I'm going, now you want me to read your mind?
Yeah,
You're asking
exactly.
me to do a lot.
Exactly.
It's like, and it's not fair.
Fair.
It's not fair. Like, that's such a bad word, but it's not fair because you're too lazy and you don't want to communicate because really you're scared. And that's cool. It's cool that you're scared, but let's just call it what it is. You just don't want to communicate because for whatever reason, you just might be scared, and we can work with that.
Absolutely. So a key part of rising isn't just our personal successes in business or in life. It's what you would definitely key into is sustaining that vitality in relationships. So you've led women through family conflicts and relationship recovery. What does a healthy, thriving relationship need at an energetic level?
Yeah, oh gosh. It depends on the relationship, but depending on the nature of it, relationships always are going to need safety. They always need safety. Because what kind of relationship can you truly have if you feel like it's danger zone? Henry Danger, isn't that what the kids watch? My son watches Henry Danger. If you always feel like you're in a danger zone, we really don't have a relationship. What we have is a transaction. And again, that's cool, but it's not a real relationship. Relationship. That means that we are in some kind of agreement in a ship. Discipleship, fellowship, mentorship. There's got to be some safety within that. The other component people need is trust. Even in the supply chain, there has to be an element of trust. There had to be trust for you and I to sit together. You had to trust me enough to think I was going to show up to the place. Okay? You know, there has to be an element of trust. What I recognize in most people, this is not just women, is we don't know how to trust people. A lot of us think, I trust you. Yeah, but what does that mean? What does that mean, I trust you? Like, trust is all or nothing. I trust you to the extent I know you. Now, I trust you. That don't mean you get my bank account stuff. I don't trust you like that. So we have to be able to define, hey, like, how can I trust you? Or in what areas do I trust? And I always say, if you're hyper independent, you're ridiculous. Because I used to be, okay, like, facts. I used to be like, I can't trust nobody. I can only trust myself. You know, like, really, Sheree? Like, sometimes you say, like, silly things to yourself. But here's what happens. Like, you say you can't trust anyone. That's ridiculous. So that means you're growing all of your food. You are milking all of your cows. And if you're vegan, that means you are scraping all of your cashews. You built your car. You built your bike. That's ridiculous. You don't trust anyone. How do you go to the grocery store? You have to have some level of trust. Well, that doesn't count. Well, it does count because our lives aren't built on being hyper independent. They're built on being independent, interdependent. Okay, now no one's asking you to be independent. Nobody's asking you to be a project. Okay, no, but you do have to have interdependency. Yeah. And then the other part of relationships, bringing that energy, is you need to know what kind of relationship this is. Ooh. Because sometimes you will expect applause from a critic. Okay? And you're thinking that this person is a champion for you, but they're a critic of you. Why would you expect an applause from a critic? Well, they're family. Because I was coaching somebody, and they were like, I'm surprised that this person did this. Okay, are they a critic or are they a champion? Well, they're a critic. Well, that's your problem. Because you expected them to give you something that they cannot.
Oof.
You expected them to do something that they had proven that they could not. So that's actually your problem because you treated a family relationship like on level ground with intimate relationships. And it's cool because I've done that too. But you've got to understand the nature. What kind of relationship is this? Is this person a project? I have very little projects. Okay, because you know, DIY, do it yourself, it takes a lot of energy. Yeah. It takes a lot of energy for a person that's a project. I don't like to be a project. It makes me feel uncomfortable. Somebody's trying to fix me up. But I need to know and understand the nature of the relationship. I need to understand how to navigate trust in the relationship. But then you've got to have like safety in that relationship. What about you? Like, what do you think are the important components?
Honestly, all of the above. I definitely would echo the same thing. And then for me, what I've found, especially as I'm really paying more attention to the relationships and who I'm allowing at this stage of my life in is also realizing, do I have unfair expectations for that person? It goes back to realizing and looking at kind of where they've been. And if you're not able to meet me where I want you to, that's not your obligation. But at the same time, it's not my obligation to maybe dim what I want or expect. And something one of my friends had really hit us home with a couple of weeks ago was, you're only able to allow the treatment, scratch that, whatever treatment you're tolerating right now, right? It is in direct proportion to what you believe you're worth. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that, I was like, no. But then I sat with it. And I was like, hold on. Where in my life am I expecting less or tolerating less than I know I deserve? And how do I adjust that? Because at the same time, it came down to the realization that if I'm going to be a sovereign person, making my own decisions, the decisions of who I'm entangling myself with in relationship, whether that's family dynamics or external, I need to take ownership of that. Mm. And I cannot expect more from you than what you're willing to give. But also, if that relationship's no longer working, I need to be the person to say, like, okay, either I'm not going to pursue this anymore, or I'm not tolerating this, or whatever the case may be. I might have to have that conversation of setting a boundary. So it's been looking at that lens of, what are they able to give me, and how do I feel around them? Because for so long, I used to be in these relationships where maybe I felt smaller or I had to shrink myself. And it's like, why am I tolerating that? A true, authentic relationship to me in any context is, we grow together and you see me in my wholeness, I see you in your wholeness. But at the same time, if I see that you can do better, I'm going to communicate that to you. Not from a place of judgment, but like, hey, I see more in you. Where might you be playing small in your life? And having that same expectation of like, that goes both ways. Feel free to chime in. Not from a place of judgment, but it was definitely what you're saying of like, why am I expecting a critic to applause for me? And really letting go of that external validation of, right now, I just need to validate myself.
I love that. Now, how do you deal with dealing with expectations of people and things of that nature?
For me, it is definitely about communication again, and seeing where our expectations align or disalign. And it's like, can I meet your expectations? Yes. Or is it maybe you're asking a little too much of what I'm willing to give you right now? And just having those healthy conversations. I think so many times in relationships, people are afraid of having the conversations because it kind of puts you almost at a dead point, right? Because it's like, either this is really going to progress or we about to burn the boat. But it's about having that willingness to let what's going to die, so you can allow more aligned energies to come in.
I love that. I love just expectations, because Christine Hassler has a really great book, Expectation Hangover. Because when we expect things or we expect certain behaviors from people that they can't give us.
Absolutely.
And we continue to expect it causes self-imposed suffering.
And suffering is a choice.
And now I'm suffering, because look, there is suffering in this world and it is real. But why in the world do I need to be dealing with some self-imposed suffering? Like, I got enough suffering. You know what I mean? Like, suffering from the heat in Las Vegas. Like, suffering from traffic, suffering because you're thirsty all the time. And now I got to, but now, wait, those are, like, not choices. Like, it's hot. I love it here. I wouldn't choose to be anywhere else. But when it comes to me suffering, because I keep expecting you to do something that you can't do, oh, baby, now I'm the problem. Yeah. Now I've just created my own inner turmoil, and I just love that. I love what you said.
I have enjoyed this conversation so much. And I'm going to be honest, I think we need to do a part two because there's so much we can get into just across all the ways that our work kind of interconnects. So, what I usually like to do is firstly, before we end off, I want to ask, how can our listeners connect with you? What are you excited about sharing with them right now? And just where can they get more of your magic?
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you because I think you're so just beautiful spirit, beautiful, amazing woman who just loves people. Thank you so much for having me here on your show and on your podcast and just sharing your radiance. I feel so honored to have learned from you about expectations and dealing with family and even like, hey, like how to support your family members, your mom and just the her method. I love it all. So I have to say that first before I talk about how people can connect with me. You can go to my website, coachshereeonline.com. You can also follow me on Instagram, Cain-Jones, where I'm just giving, not just giving, but I'm really helping women who need to disrupt their relationship patterns so that they can live their purpose and walk out their vision. And most of all, I love people. Visit me on my website. And I'm also a keynote speaker. You can go to ShereeCain-Jones.com and get more information about me there.
Beautiful. So I usually start the podcast with this question, but I'm going to go ahead and actually end it. What's bringing you joy right now?
What's bringing me joy right now? What's bringing me joy right now is recognizing that life is never going to be perfect. So I need to capture the moments while I have them and enjoy the air and enjoy my husband and my 2 kids that are home with me and my daughters where they are and just love life for what it is and stop holding my breath for what I wish it was.
I love that. Okay, so rapid fire. So think 1 to 2 word answers. A book that changed your life.
5 Things to Do Before 8 a.m. by Terry Savelle Foy.
Love it. What's your daily non-negotiable outside of brushing your teeth? I had a guest answer that, and I was like, oh, we're going literal here.
Okay, yeah. My daily non-negotiable is sitting down and meditating and reading. It must be done. I must feed my soul before I feed anyone else.
Love that. What is 1 word that describes the season you're in right now?
Rebirth.
Same. 2025 word of the year.
Oh, expand.
Aligned. That's the vibe. Okay.
I love it.
Well, it's been an honor to
Wait,
have
what are
you.
yours? Like, do I get to find out?
Okay. Yeah. Oh, she's turning on the interview channels. Okay. When we started the year, my word was bold. And as we are getting into this like halfway point, I'm finding that the word has been added of surrender. Surrender the house, surrender the control. And my 2025 theme is just quantum leap.
And the book that you've read that changed your life, what book have you read?
So many. The latest, and this is just a plug, is The Reinvention Formula by Craig Siegel.
The Reinvention Formula. Okay.
Yeah, because ironically, I found that as I needed to be reinvented. So,
I love it. Thank you.
well, it's been a pleasure having you. Yeah. I'm so grateful we had this conversation. And like I said, you have to come back on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Anita. And it was so fun being with y'all.